Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome back to PSA TV. This is a wake-up call segment. I'm Avellon Williams. Joining me here on set, I know he's no stranger to us in Trinidad. He's actually probably going to be the Prime Minister one day. I just want to welcome him in studio here with us at the PSA TV, Mr. Phillip Alexander. Good morning.
Thank you for having me, Avellon.
How are you?
Good. I want to say from your lips to God's ear that, you know, they say you must accept things in faith.
Right.
No, I never knew there was something as vibrant as a PSA media. Great job.
Yes. Yes.
I hope Satish Ramsaran, head of PEP Media, is following, because I'm going to give him your number to come and see what you guys have going on here.
Sure. This was one of our president, Mr. Duke's biggest dream, was to have a media section within the PSA. And
that's so important. I mean, getting the word out is important. We have a situation going on right now where you're not sure who's controlling the flow of information.
Yep.
Big stuff happening is not making traditional media. Thank God for social media.
Yep. I know. We have a lot to discuss today.
I know.
A lot.
I know.
I mean, I've been preparing myself for this with you, and I just want to dive straight into it on the political side. You know, what led you to run for office, though?
Well, I come from an activist family. My parents are staunch members of the Living Water community. My father was a senior campaign member of Clive Panton's campaign back in the 80s. So the ONR was big in my house. We've always been third-party people. We've always been deep in the democracy people. I've grown up in activism. I grew up around people like Clive Panton. I counted as friends people like Lincoln Myers and Raoul Panton. So you get an idea of the type of influences that I have had in my politics. I didn't think that I would get this political. I was a social activist for a long time. Right. We had the Jericho Project. That's about 21 years old now. In fact, this year we're going to have our 10th Kids Funathon that we have every year for all the orphans in the country. It's the only time all the orphans get together. The Jericho Project puts that on, and it's all the orphans come to the savannah, and anybody wants to sponsor anything nice for them, they get gifts. It's like their Christmas, and they look forward to it every year. I was doing that for about 21 years, dealing with the needs of the orphans, the disabled, the homeless. We were the people behind the Akil Chambers Justice for Children March. We had that for 3 years. At the height of it, we had about 25,000 people in the march, and it prompted the then People's Partnership government to bring the Languishing Children's Bill and make it law. And that's why we have a Children's Authority now, because of public involvement in that march. Everybody got together. And watching a lot of the problems that affect the people of this country, we say things, third wealthiest nation in the world, yet we have so much poverty.
Yep, we do. I get it all the time. I get a lot of complaints here at the PSA TV.
It's ridiculous. I mean, when you look at, we're the third wealthiest nation in the Western world, they say per capita, but our GDP is 22 billion US a year. That sounds like a lot, but then you compare it to Singapore, that's half the size of Trinidad, and their GDP is 322 billion US dollars a year. So why is our economy so small? And then you realize there's a centralization of money, and there's a centralization of wealth, and there's a centralization of power. And we don't have a real capitalist democracy. We think we do, and we play in that space. So I got to a point where I was tired of dealing with the problems, and I wanted to go to the source. And the source of all the problems in Trinidad and Tobago is politics. It's all government.
Yep. Phillip, I know you're going heavy with this PEP party of yours. You know, what are some of your strategies you have in mind to dethrone this PNM government?
From the moment we launched, we started a campaign to inform, educate, and empower. We've changed the national narrative. I remind people that the week before the Progressive Empowerment Party was launched, the Parliament was arguing about who is a fairy and who spent more money on roti. That was the nature of the debate. Now we hear people talking about water. Bo Tiwari went to a public meeting and actually espoused a Progressive Empowerment Party policy, because we've been saying if we get 10 times the water we could possibly use every year as rain, how could we have drought? And why don't we put catchment areas where the floods are and hold and treat and distribute that water so we don't have a flood and drought season. Things like that, you know. We're informing, we're educating, we're empowering, we're opening offices. I see other people are opening offices now too.
Yeah.
We have a headquarters on Stanmore Avenue where we have a weekly meet and greet. Every single Saturday at noon we have a public meeting. Open to the public, open mic, come in and have your say. We've opened offices in North, in South, in Central, in the East, and now we're trying to open an office in Tobago. We're negotiating now to get to Tobago. We have a New York chapter and a New York office. We have a Toronto chapter and a Florida chapter. We're working on a UK chapter. And the diaspora, the Trinbagonians outside number in the millions, Trinis. And we want to give them a voice too, because a lot of people, my brother has been living in Canada for decades, and his kids grew up as Canadians, but they're Trinidadians. And when they come here, Uncle Phillip take us for roti, Uncle Phillip take us for doubles. You know, so they live a first world life, but they have a Trinidad identity. And I keep wondering, how is it possible that we can have all this wealth and all this money and be so fortunate, and we're such a third world? I mean, we're fourth world now.
Yep. I mean, we had an RTC in Trinidad recently where he made that statement where Trinidad is a third world country. And
we get angry. I mean, we got angry at what Donald Trump said. We don't want to face the fact that if you have a country where, in the Newsday today, I hope you don't mind me calling another meeting.
No, sure.
In the Newsday today, there's an article about South people held hostage by traffic. We have 200,000 people come into Port of Spain every day and leave every evening to operate government businesses, and it doesn't make sense. That should have been decentralized a long time ago. We knew that since Patrick Manning's first term. We knew that the major cause of traffic in Trinidad is two things, that and the school system. Because our school system is not zoned, we have parents who have to leave their house in darkness to get one child to Chaguanas and the next child to Port of Spain. And it doesn't make sense when the same education system that funding all the schools, the same pool of teachers coming out of the same ministry, why would you have some schools prestige and some schools also ran? It doesn't make sense. It seems to be that the country was deliberately set up to fail, and we wanted to fix all of that. We walkabout. We were in Point Fortin yesterday. We were in Sawan the day before. We in San Fernando West this evening. Our teams are
on the ground.
Busy on the ground,
That's
working the
nice.
ground. That's where they are.
Nice.
So people come to us. We have a strong social media presence. We have a website, peptt.com. We have an app, Pep app. So people could reach us to get information, and our members are also on the ground building out.
What are some of your policies that you plan to put in place for the middle class and the poorer class?
Banking regulation is critical to the redevelopment of the economy. Diversification of the economy is critical to the development of the middle class.
Right.
You could tell the size of a country and its scope by the size and the growth of its middle class. When we say that our GDP is 10% of what it should be, or even less, Trinidad and Tobago, we just watched Dorian, this hurricane, destroy the Bahamas. It just is going to damage Georgia and some of Florida. But these hurricanes pass us straight every year. And we don't understand that we're not Barbados, we're not Dominica, we're not Grenada, we're not the Bahamas. Trinidad and Tobago is the only island chain in the Caribbean that's outside of the hurricane belt. We don't use that to our advantage. Just the marine craft, pleasure craft industry could earn us billions of dollars. Cruise tourism is the fastest growing tourism in the world. We could put 1 million tourists in Tobago in a year just by dealing with all of the cruise companies. In fact, our deputy chairman, Sean Sunarine, is a cruise industry executive and the head of our South chapter, and she's deputy party organizer, Michelle Davis. She's actually the granddaughter of Mervyn Dimely, who was the congressman who worked in Trinidad and Tobago. She's also a cruise industry executive, and we have positive information that just cruise tourism, working with all of the cruise companies, because they need destinations. If you make it functional for them to come to your country, they would come here and they would bring their tourists here, and to pour 1 million tourists into Tobago, they would spend a lot of money, especially if we give them the authentic Caribbean life that they're looking for. They want to take pictures of themselves eating curry crab or callaloo or goat racing. We don't need more skyscrapers. We don't need a Napa. We need more carrot sheds. They want to come for the Caribbean experience. Authentic tourism, besides the cruise tourism, we have Carnival. When you learn that New Orleans Carnival puts millions of dollars, Carifesta, millions of dollars, Rio, hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're struggling to get tourists to our carnival, and we say we're the greatest show on earth. Something's wrong in the way we're operating it. So the things that need to be done is a rejuvenation, bring the stakeholders together. I'm in a PSA building, and I don't understand to this day, because these are policies we put out there, and we say, you know what, steal the idea, because at the end of the day, it's a better country for all of us. Why there is no such thing as an activist council? Why don't all the unions and all the activists meet with the government every month? A real government would want information from the ground, from the workers. Give me the information from the workers' perspective.
I think it probably has been happening, but just maybe they don't have time to meet with them. Maybe.
But you see, but I find that difficult to believe, because we have a lot of information that is trying to get out there. When you speak to the farmers, when you speak to the vendors, these are all communities of people that, if given a hearing and the support, would develop the country. Most of the businessmen in Port of Spain, a lot of the large business people now, I went to school with the owners of Hadco. They're multi-millionaires now. When they were in school with me, they were living in poverty, and their parents were vendors, and the Abuds, who the head of Doma, his family is vendor people.
Yeah.
My grandfather, I am half Syrian, my grandfather and my uncles, Abu, they used to go walking around all over Trinidad and Tobago vending. And now we treat vendors with such scant courtesy and disrespect, pick up their stuff and throw it away. We can't deal with our people like that. We need to flip the script and come back at how people develop. It's not just jobs. Jobs are important. There are high commissioners and ambassadors all over the world serving us no purpose now. That was set up at a time when communication was not as instant as communication is now. So you needed to write a letter as your prime minister to your ambassador to Washington, to have him go and knock on doors to represent you. Now the prime minister of Trinidad and Tobago could FaceTime with the president of the United States. You don't need an intermediary. You don't need 3 weeks for the letter. We say all of those embassies and high commissions that cost us so much money should be shut down. We only need 5. Africa, European Union, United Nations, the Americas, and Asia. And their mission should be twofold. Sell Trinidad business to the world, everything that we do here. We have the best honey in the world, we have the best cocoa in the world, we have the second hottest pepper in the world. We could decriminalize marijuana and grow that for export, for medicinal use, and hemp, and all of these other burgeoning new industries. And those ambassadors could be used to bring foreign direct investment. We drive out of our capital city, and we have the largest depressed community on our left, and the nation's dump on our right, and that is insane. And we should have moved the Labas from there a long time ago and used that space to create a massive job creation spot for foreigners to come and build labor-intensive businesses. Samsung, LG, Apple, you could bring those companies here. That was the model India used. India went from being the slum of the world in 30 years to having the most intellectual patents on IT patents in the world. They have the largest middle class in the world now, just on IT and information systems. We used to joke in the early stages of the internet that when you call for tech support, an Indian would answer. But now the heads of Google, Facebook, these are all big, Amazon, are people at the highest levels coming out of India. We've have no vision for how we operate our country. Our people are going to school, don't know what fields to study. So be a doctor, be a lawyer, because that's all you know.
And when they study that, do they have
no
jobs?
work for them? We've lost. We had doctors that we gave scholarships to that had to lose their scholarships. We lost out on monetizing it, putting them into the system because the system wasn't set up for it. We don't have a vision long term for Trinidad and Tobago. We don't know what we are. Nobody knows. Are we an industrial company? Are we a tech country? Are we a manufacturing country? Singapore is a shipping country. One of the biggest industries in the world, shipping. Everything in this room, everything around us, everything we're wearing, all of it came on a ship. Everything. The newsprint that this paper is on came on a ship. And shipping is such a massive industry. Trinidad, outside the hurricane belt, we are in between North, Central, South America. We can have the biggest break bulk yard in the Western world to deal with just the Caribbean territories. Bring big shipments here and break it up and ship it to the other islands. We could do all of those things, but we have no vision for it. Our port loses $1 billion a year. Singapore is making hundreds of billions of dollars on their port services. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong with this picture? So when you ask me what you would do for the economy, diversification is job one. We knew in the 1980s when Trinidad and Tobago went through that recession that you cannot put all of your eggs in one basket. And as beautiful as the energy sector is when it's booming, it's horrifying when it's busting. And we've lived a recession for 4 years, while the rest of the world economy grew at 3.5%, and nobody could explain to me why. I heard the Prime Minister say diversification is not easy, but that's not true. There are companies involved in green technology, in renewable energy, that have approached to set up industries in Trinidad and Tobago and have been refused. Wind farms, geothermal, thermal dynamics. We could get into solar arrays. The sky is the limit. We could diversify into agriculture for food consumption to make ourselves food self-sufficient. And then the next step should be to make ourselves a net food exporter like we were up to the 70s. Our scorpion, Moruga scorpion pepper, is used mostly for the manufacture of pepper spray. If that's the case, why aren't we growing Moruga pepper on all of Caroni lands and cornering the market on pepper spray? A canister of pepper spray lasts 9 months and then you have to throw it away because it spoils. So it's a constant. All armies, all police forces are moving away from lethal weapons. So pepper spray and tasers are now the weapons of choice for crowd control. We could be earning billions of dollars if we put our eggs, some of our eggs, in that basket. So think about it. Tourism, cruise tourism, marine craft. If you go to Lloyd's of London and say, Trinidad is open for business, bring all the pleasure craft in the Caribbean and store it by us. They will spend the money to build the marinas. Because when you look at the carnage after a hurricane, they lose hundreds of millions of dollars in marine craft, in boats and sailboats. If they were in Trinidad, they'd be safe.
I just want to ask you a question again about your political party. Do you have an idea of who are the candidates you're going to be putting up? We
have a lot of ideas about our candidates. The hubs that I just said that we open in North, East, Central, South, and the one that's going to open in Tobago, they all have leaders. The purpose of those hubs are to decentralize the authority of the party to the constituencies and establish caretakers. Those caretakers build out the teams to the ground, do the walkabouts, and we get information back as to strong personalities who have the right mindset and skill set to be a member of parliament. We will be the first government that abolishes the whip. And if you only knew how undemocratic the whip in the parliament is, because all of the MPs in that house were sent there by the people. And they're supposed to represent the people. But they don't, because they are under a whip. And that whip tells them how to vote. So that the members of parliament don't go back to the people and say, we're debating doing away with the Privy Council, to go to the CCJ, what you think? Or we're debating hanging and capital punishment. Those are serious, serious issues. The value of our money, economy, decentralization, banking regulations. You should send your members of parliament back to the people who sent them to the house. If you remove the whip and members of parliament are allowed to vote conscience, government could pilot bills and the people say no. The people who put in government, we want change the government, but we don't want that bill. The people could tell Keith Rowley, we don't mind you as Prime Minister, but we don't like that Sedition Act. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? And that's the purpose of the House of Representatives, because each seat is not known by the person's name. It's known member for Laventille West.
Yeah.
Because it belongs to the people of Laventille West. And the person sitting in that seat is supposed to be speaking the views and the values of the people of Laventille West. We don't have that now.
Philip, are you going to probably form an alliance with any other political party to oust the PNM government?
As alluring an idea as that might be, just because of the last part, and not just to target the PNM government, but to target this version of the PNM.
Yeah.
Because this version of the PNM should have Chambers, Williams, and Manning turning in their graves. This version of the PNM is not the real PNM, and the PNM supporters are waking up to this fact. So I want to tell them there's home for them in the Progressive Empowerment Party, because our slogan is one people under one flag. We see no differences in people, race, religion, class, color, height, weight, sexual orientation, none of these dividers. We are a political movement with one mission: to make Trinidad and Tobago a better place. Uniting with other political movements could be difficult because we are so strong on our policies and our ideology. The first one is to remove all of these obstacles to unification. We say that we are a nation that doesn't practice racist politics.
Right.
But then Denny could go up on a UNC platform and say that the SSA fired all the Indians. And then the Minister of National Security's response would be, no, we fire more Africans. That's not the response. The response is, we will do an investigation to see if that is in fact so, and if it was in fact so, we'll fire that person, because that is not supposed to be the policy. Publish your hiring practices. Let people know what is the disciplinary and termination practices of the SSA, so they'll be able to see. Give a voice to all of those who were fired, because some of them are saying they were fired for no reason and they could only think that it was race. And these issues continue to haunt and plague Trinidad and Tobago. To join with other political parties, they need to be on the same page as you, because if you look at the People's Partnership experience, they were in constant squabble because they had different values. Our values is a political party, a government should be smaller. We don't need more than 13 people in the cabinet. We have ministries that make no sense. Trinidad and Tobago's Ministry of Tourism should be a Department of Tourism. We should have a Secretary of Labor. We should have a Department of Foreign Affairs and the Department of Sports.
Yeah.
So they have direct responsibility and answerable to a line minister. The Social Development Ministry in Trinidad and Tobago is treated like an outside child. But that should be the second largest ministry in this country after the Ministry of Finance, because we're such a plural society, because we're so multi-ethnic, because we have so many religions and we want to give everybody their expression space. You're supposed to be managing the country from that point of view. And we say that the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of National Security should come under the Ministry of Social Development, because that is the ways in which you deal with your people.
Yeah.
And if we have a plan for the development of Trinidad and Tobago, tertiary education, for example, should be based on, if you know 10 years from now, you're going to work with Guyana and Brazil to manufacture airplanes in Trinidad and Tobago, just using a wild analogy. Then you're going to want aeronautical engineers, you're going to want people who understand the airline industry, mechanics, machinists, builders, craftsmen, tradesmen. You're going to need all the ancillary support services, electrical, all of that.
Yeah.
So the first thing that you need is a vision. If you're getting into tourism, then the Tourism and the Hospitality Institute needs to be given a mandate. Start giving us people able to function. When you look at Mexico, Mexico has one of the highest murder rates in the world, but Mexico is one of the #1 tourist destinations in the world. They have 5 and 6 and 7-star resorts now, because they take it seriously. They have an idea of what they want to do. We've been running by VAPs, policy on the hoof, You wake up today, you find out, let's build a highway through a protected forest, and everybody's going, where was that in your manifesto?
Yeah.
Where did you say that you were going to destroy virgin forest? That is the reason we have an ENA in the first place. And run a highway. You never discussed that with anybody.
Yeah, Philip, I just want to put a pause there, and so that we can just toss to news, and we're going to be right back to finish this discussion here with the political leader of PEP. I know all his peppers are online. I'm seeing all the comments here. So we're going to be right back after the news. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome back to PSA TV. This is the Wake Up Call segment. I'm Avellon Williams. I've been chatting here in studio with the political leader of the Progressive Empowerment Party. He's aspiring to be the next Prime Minister of this country, Mr. Phillip Edward Alexander.
Yeah, well, we're back. That was a nice long break.
I know, Philip, we've just been discussing about your political party. I wanted to ask you another question. How do you plan to get the young people to believe in you?
Inform, educate, empower. More than anything, young people don't want you to fool them. So when you put information in the public space, it is the young people most likely to challenge you on the facts behind your position. So you need to make sure that your information is correct and that you get it to them so that they could have that debate with you. I think that the young people in Trinidad and Tobago are getting turned on to the idea that they could be politically involved and impact their future. Before, everybody thought a vote was, well, you vote, you get a jersey and $100, and if you're lucky, you get a CPAP walk. But now they're seeing that you could actually vote yourself a country where home ownership and the cost of living is brought in line with the value of the wages in your pocket. I know, I'm in the PSA building, and I hear people talk, oh, why them always marching, why them always negotiating. And I don't think that people understand that what workers want everywhere. I tell business owners this. What workers want is an affordable cost of living.
Right.
And they will continue to march as long as wages does not keep up with inflation. It is a function of the state to make sure that what we work for could buy us the things that we need. We work, we exchange our labor for money, and we want that money to be able to buy us the things that we want to make a life for ourselves and our loved ones. Trinidad is the most easygoing people. Tobagonians was. Easygoing people. We could fix this country so fast. I ask people all the time, break it down to units. Forget changing currencies. Break it down to units. If you're working digging a hole in New York City and you're working digging a hole in Trinidad, both of those are units of work. Effort expended in exchange for value, and that value should translate to what you could get. I use KFC and McDonald's always as an analogy so that people could understand, put in a frame of reference, that $15 an hour in New York City, buying an 8-piece bucket of chicken for $20 in New York City means an hour and 15 minutes and you can buy a bucket of chicken. $15 an hour in Trinidad, trying to buy the same bucket of chicken for $100 tells you now have to work 7 hours to be able to buy what somebody doing the exact same job in New York City could buy. And it comes down to that. And I ask all the time, if we're the third wealthiest nation in the Western Hemisphere, if we own the Pitch Lake and we have a Tobago and we have all of these things that should make our people not wealthy, but happy, prosperous. Prosperous is not all of us driving BMWs. I don't want a BMW. Prosperous is if you go into a restaurant with your kids, you want to be able to let them order without you thinking, all right, I'm not going to be able to pay the rent this month because when the bill comes. We need to make sure that something pulls our value for our money back. I don't understand why we work for 1/7 the value that our American counterparts work. And then the value of our money is 4 times, 5 times, 6 times off. A liter of milk in Trinidad and Tobago is $2. A gallon of milk in America, which is 4 liters, is $2. So that means You're working longer, you're working harder to get the same money, and then you have to work 4 times more to buy the same things. And people need to understand, this is a function of government. The economy is a function of what the people in the parliament, the cabinet, and the government does. And all workers, we are all workers. Every human being has to have an income to survive. However you get that income, you have to have one. And the public service and the oil field workers and the teachers, they provide a service that we undervalue in this country. The only time we hear about things like the public service, we hear about it when they're marching. But I've said before, until you get a government willing to have conversations that bring real wages in line with inflation and the cost of living, because you keep giving people raises, and you're giving them a raise 5 years late, and then inflation eats up the raise, and they end up worse off than they were before the march. It's a continuing cycle of nothingness, and you're frustrating people who are living out their day-to-day, because that's what it is, you know. It's people, everyday people, living out their day-to-day, trying to put gas in the car, trying to pay for the car, trying to get the kids to school, things to make up a life.
Yeah. On that note, Philip, what plans do you have for public servants do?
The public service in Trinidad and Tobago is very important. It's underutilized and mismanaged. We need a vision for the country. If our port should be 10 times the size that the port is now, cement waterfront workers they will then need to hire more people, and they would be able to help chart a functional relationship with the state. Let me use an example, the metal example, because metal is the most glaring example of how we fail. When we had the Iron and Steel Company of Trinidad and Tobago, it was losing $1 million a day. Metal took it over, and using the same workers, the same company, the same system, had it earning $1 million profit. What he changed was management. We need to create an environment in Trinidad and Tobago that is people friendly, that is income friendly. And it doesn't only have to be about jobs. You should be able to expand and become entrepreneurs. All of the things in the world that we enjoy, somebody was a visionary. I tell people the #1 selling stationery item on the planet was liquid paper. Because of liquid paper and the amount of sales liquid paper used to get, we ended up with stationery stores. That was a woman who ended up back in the workforce, who couldn't type as well as she used to, and was making a lot of mistakes. She invented liquid paper, and the rest is history. And I'm saying that without support, she could have never gone from the idea stage to it being. And then look at the flip side. Outside every car dealer in the world now, they have these dancing fan dancers. You know what I'm talking about? Blow up in the sky and come back down. Peter Minshall invented that. Our Peter Minshall. He should be a billionaire of royalties. Who in Trinidad was going to support Peter Minshall with his fan dance? That's a stupid idea. Look at what it is now. It's a global icon. We do not treat our people in this country the way we should treat them. All of our people. And that's why Trini is so vexed. Because the average person wake up out of their bed today to hustle and grind and deal with all the drama that comes with Trinidad and Tobago. You could come out your house with the best mood and then have to go and deal with somebody who they're not having a good day, so they just spoil yours.
Yeah, I know, Philip, we have an issue with the US dollars and stuff in this country. What is your plan to get back US dollars into this economy?
Diversify the economy. If you diversify the economy, you will have the opportunity to earn real foreign exchange. Food. We spend billions of US dollars on food. Trinidad could be food self-sufficient in quick time. Food self-sufficiency would save us US dollars. But all of the things we're talking about diversifying into brings US currency. And that is the currency or foreign currency.
So if you come into office, would you be devaluating the dollar though?
I don't think you need to devalue. I think we need to revalue at some point. Okay. I think we need to grow this economy to the point where, and I want to use Dubai, Singapore, and New York City as points to note, that the value their people get for a unit of work, this idea of devaluation and valuation and comparison, I want people to start to get in the habit of comparing a unit of work. If I'm driving a taxi in Trinidad and somebody is driving a taxi in New York City, what they earn and what I earn And what could they get for what they earn, or what I could get for what I earn? That is the conversation we need to have.
Yeah. So, should you, as a leader, do you think you should devaluate the TNT dollar without the consensus of the people?
Nothing as serious as that should happen without the consensus of the people. But we say we have a floating currency, and yet it is kind of mismanaged because we hold it at a value, and I don't know how you could have both a floating currency and hold it at a value. That seems to contradict each other. The banks in Trinidad and Tobago put a 13% tax on everything in this room that we don't know about. It's not accounted for. Because if you bring US currency into the country and you sell it to the banks, you get $6.01 for it. If you go back to buy the same US currency, you have to pay $6.77. That's a 13% difference. And as the vast majority of things are imported, that is an increase in the price that we didn't need.
Yeah. On another note, Philip, would you be bringing unity to this country?
One people under one flag. One people under one flag. Every office of state needs to be blind to race. It needs to be blind to religion.
So there is no ethnic politics, nothing.
You can't. How could half a ship sink and the other half go its merry way? You are never going to have a peaceful, prosperous Trinidad and Tobago until all the people, and we've said, we put into the public space, the well-being of the citizens is the function and purpose of government. It must be like a rising tide that lifts all boats. You can't tell the tide. We've lived in a country where the state has paved one side of a road to punish people on the other side and then vote for them. And that's the madness of politicizing government, and that is in fact misbehavior in public office, because the state is not supposed to be political. The state is supposed to represent all the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
I just wanted to ask, I know it may be sort of a personal question, but how do you plan to finance your campaign?
Our campaign?
Yes.
Right. So I remember another political leader, I was on a debate once, and she asked me, where let's get the money from to do all of this? Every single day of life, the Progressive Empowerment Party is fundraising. Our membership costs $20, and we want that $20. Our t-shirts, we sell them. Our polo shirts, we sell them. That's income. Saturday gone, we just had our 3rd annual barbecue. That was our biggest to date.
Okay.
Saturday before, our New York chapter had a food fair, street fair. Saturday coming, we have another pep market. 4 weeks ago, we had another pep barrel sale that the New York, Florida, and Canada teams organized. And then we have a back in times 2 weeks from now, on the 21st of September in Toronto. All of these are the ways we make money. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds like car wash politics. But at some point, we hope that there are people who have the means to come and meet with us and say, okay.
Okay, so you don't get any sort of financial
Not at all.
assistance.
But I'm hoping, and I'm saying now, that if you have the means, and we have donors,
Right.
We have donors, bless their souls, that every month will send a 50 US or 100 US. But there are people out there with the means to actually help us win. And now is the time to come and meet with us. Not to look for anything personally in exchange for it, but to look for a better country. I tell people all the time, you could be living in Bayshore, behind the gates, and you come in and you go through the first set of gates, and you have your roving security, and you reach your driveway, you go through your gates, you have your personal security, you open your garage door and you go inside of there and you close that behind you, and you leave your bodyguard in the yard, and you turn off your blink security, and you go through your 5 locks on your wrought iron gate. How is that living? How is that anything like I am happy? I want to be able to walk out of my house, out of my yard, out in the street, walk up by the neighbor. I grew up in Woodbrook. We said I'm on the pavement. We grew up, I remember my parents used to throw us out of the house, come back when the street lights come on. You think you could out your children today? We need a country where everybody is happy and safe all the time. We don't have that now. And you can't feel comfortable because you're safe in your little community. What happens when you come out of that community? If the rest of the country is not as safe as you are, then when you come out of your community to go and get milk and toilet paper, you're putting yourself in danger. It is myopic and underproductive. We need to go back to a place where we say, if all of us happy, then all of us could be happy. That's the truth.
That's it. Philip, when you get into office, though, do you intend to revisit the Constitution in the way the country is running right now?
There are things in the Constitution that has to change. We need to properly entrench civil rights, human rights, freedom of speech. The right of recall, the Progressive Empowerment Party says our first day in government, we ask 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 people come to the parliament, because on that day we will convene parliament and we're not coming out until we've passed recall into law. And what recall means is that the same way you voted somebody into office on promises that they made to you, if they're not keeping that promise, you don't have to wait 5 years. You could petition the EBC under the terms and conditions of the law that governs recall and recall them and send somebody else. Immediately, members of parliament would know that the people they're representing could fire them. A member of parliament should come from the constituency in which they represent. I watch Fitzgerald Hines representing Laventille West, but he living in Hillsborough. When those people kick water on Fitzgerald, it's because Fitzgerald living on a hill in a middle-class community in Maraval. So he don't know the reality of Laventille West. If Fitzgerald Hines and his family woke up that morning in that flood water, he would have been just as upset as those people. He would have gone to the cabinet and said, watch now, we had to fix Laventille West. This is unacceptable. But he doesn't know. I watched Stephen Cadiz on another talk show. He was the member of parliament for Shagwanas West, and he was talking about his MP, because he too was living in Maraval. And it doesn't make sense. That is a constitutional amendment that we need. We also need to separate the legislature from the executive. A member of parliament should only be a member of parliament. This thing about making members of parliament ministers, you take away their number one job, which is to represent the people who sent them there. Ministers should be hired like CEOs. That's what the Senate should be used for, because the Senate as set up now is non-functional. Use the Senate to bring in CEOs. Have that body meet as the CEO of education, the CEO of health, the CEO of public works, dealing with a decentralized constituency board of supervisors 41 times, and decentralize the power of the government down to the people. A minister shouldn't sit in Sinclair and decide when Point Fortin roads paving. It shouldn't be like that.
As you're on that note, Philip, I just want to read a comment. Somebody's asking, Sati is asking, what are your plans to regulate traffic?
We were saying earlier, there are different things that cause traffic in Trinidad. The 200,000 people, 250,000 people that come into Trinidad morning and evening, you need to digitize a lot of the offices of state. You need to rebuild a proper government campus in the center of the island, equidistant from everybody, so that everybody not trying to come to Port of Spain. You need to zone schools. If all schools are same functional prestige level, and they're 10-year schools, parents and children could grow with their classmates and come of age in a community. Parents get to deal with one set of administrators and teachers for the duration of their child's career. But when school is closed, we have no traffic. So that tells you something, that school traffic causes a lot of traffic. There is localized traffic, like there was traffic in Diego Martin. To go home, I live in Diego Martin, and to go home to Diego Martin every evening, I used to sit in traffic from Movie Town, and it used to take 2-3 hours, and every side street in St. James and Woodbrook was blocked. People used to go and drive wrong in Westmoreland, come up behind St. Finbar's Church, frustrate everybody. And we formed an organization called the Diego Martin Redevelopment Committee and went to the then Minister of Works, Jack Warner. And we said this would bypass the 4 roads traffic lights that is causing the traffic. And if we bypassed it, what is now the Diego Martin bypass, they wouldn't have this traffic. And the day it was open, from that day, people went from spending 3 hours to get home to 10 minutes. All of those problems could solve. Maraval, for people, and I'm just speaking, and you could go incrementally throughout the country. There are situations where traffic crosses each other. We have a guy in Trinidad called Dr. Ray Furlong. And if you sit with Dr. Ray Furlong, and if you give him the tools to solve those problems long before we have any mass transit conversation. Give Ray Furlong the responsibility, because he is well respected in his field, and tell him, solve all of the cases of local traffic while we solve the education and the north-south traffic. While we solve those, you solve the localized traffic. And let's see what our situation is after.
I remember a couple of months ago, Philip, you did a video in West Morris. What was the update with that barrier?
They've gotten permission.
So it's there.
They've gotten permission.
Okay, I just want to read a comment here. One of your viewers here asking, do you think people will vote on morality rather than race next general election?
I hope people vote on functionality. It shouldn't be morality, it shouldn't be race.
Right.
It should be hiring people to come and operate your country.
Right.
That's what you're hiring. So your morality or my morality, your race and my race, those things shouldn't come into question.
Right.
It should be, who is the best person to fix this economy? Who is the best person to get us first world healthcare? Who will get us functional education? You know, our education system loses about 7,000 children every year. From the 20,000 that does SEA, by the time that class reaches 5th form, along the way, we've lost thousands, and thousands more fail. And you need CXC passes to be a security guard. You need CXC passes to pack fries in a chicken and chips box. So these people who have no passes, who the education system for whatever reason failed them, what are they supposed to do? Yeah. We have no social management. So is URP and CPEP, is take off your clothes and hustle for work. It has to be, we have to have a better vision for the country. And if you're voting, vote for people who are breaking it down for you. And let everybody else, I tell Trinidad and Tobago, we should insist on debates. And let's have debates about issues, not about who pipe and cat and all, grooming and all this nonsense. Sure. Let's get to issues. That's what they hired you for. They hired you for that. Get the banks to treat us with respect. Trinidadians get no interest on their deposits, so now you can't access credit to get into a business. That's madness. Yeah. We need to open up the banking sector to foreign competition. We need to create banking, financial sector regulation. The central bank and the state should set deposit interest and lending interest. That was the original terms of agreement of the banking sector, so that the banks will have to put money back out in the system to make money, and the people will have opportunities to get into business and make money as well.
I'm just going to be pulling some questions. Another person is asking, what's your plan for WASA?
The ideal situation to deal with WASA, deal with it from a water management and a company management. From a water management point of view, follow the water where it collects. Wherever it collects, create retention ponds. As I said, I live in Diego Martin. I watch the Diego Martin River take millions of gallons of rainwater collected from Diego Martin and Petite Valley and rush all the way down to West Morris to dump it in the sea. How could we have drought if we have that much water? All along the riverbank of the Diego Martin River, we could sink retention ponds, all connected to wherever is the central reservoir for that western part of Trinidad and Tobago. If you decentralize WASA into smaller versions of itself, with responsibility to catch, hold, treat and distribute water, if one of them suffers a critical failure, they could cross-connect and help each other and carry each other. But most importantly, we're supposed to have the information to know what is the total gallon consumption of water in Trinidad and Tobago per year. We need to know that. Yeah. Because it's a rainy season now and rain is falling and flooding the place, but the reservoir is still low. That tells me that the water is going in a different direction to the reservoirs. And WASA should be working on getting that to be a different situation. Get the water flowing to fill the reservoirs, build dams, build retention ponds, safeguard the water.
Another question coming out from Tobago, they're asking, what are your plans for people of Tobago in the tourism industry? We have beautiful natural resources that are under market and undervalued.
Tobago is the best, the most beautiful island in the world. The countries that I have seen are all manufactured to look that way. They take care of their place. Nobody takes care of Tobago. They've left Tobago as another one of our bastard children, and that's unfair. And we say that a brick, block, and a banana must be the same price in Trinidad as it is in Tobago. It must be easy to get from Trinidad to Tobago as it is to flag down a maxi. Yeah. Why our water taxi system that we set up, that was supposed to go from jetty to jetty around the island, why that doesn't exist? We have a member, Michelle Davis, who comes from Cedrus to our meeting. She would jump in a water taxi from Cedros all the way to Port of Spain if she could. But she can't because it doesn't exist. Tobago needs its own constituency board of supervisors for Tobago East and West. Tobago could benefit from a third constituency, but that's another conversation.
Right.
Tobago needs a marine university. Tobago needs a development bank that facilitates people to get into the tourism industry. Because you don't want 5 sandals on the island. The people who come to Tobago want the authentic Tobago experience. We had the largest brain coral. We have the only nylon pool in the world. We're dragging anchors across the reefs and killing the goose that lay in the golden eggs. All those things need to be fixed up. No man's land supposed to be created as an opportunity for people. All of the history of Tobago. We lost the sugar mill. We should have protected and preserved those. We have one of the oldest old growth forests in Tobago. Tourism in Tobago, managed properly, would generate a massive income for Tobago.
Philip, do you believe in splitting tourism from Tobago and Trinidad will be a good idea?
You need a department of tourism,
Right.
but Trinidad tourism and Tobago tourism might need different things. What you need to do is working with the stakeholders in both islands, identify the best way forward so that you could put the state's responsibility is to put the resources that the stakeholders need to grow the industry and get out of their way. The state's responsibility is to market to the world. Those same 5 ambassadors we talk about, Africa, European Union, United Nations, Asia and Americas, their job should be to market Tobago to the world. With social media now, 90% of your advertising budget should be social media. Come to Tobago. Come to Tobago. If you created just that as a marketing campaign, come to Tobago and get people to come and have the authentic Tobago experience, they will go back and tell people word of mouth that, hey boy, this is the best place in the world to come to. Why are we not doing that?
Gregory is asking, how will you approach national unity and crime?
National unity and crime. We hope that everything that we're doing here will solve crime. If you take away poverty from the equation, you remove a lot of the human resource for crime. The people who import in the cocaine, the money men, they're not the ones going down inside the pirogue to take the cocaine out. So they need poor, hungry people to put them at risk. A lot of those young men from John Street in Cocorit that went to jail for the Monas Island bust, you can sell them for 1% of the value of that $600 million worth of cocaine. It is unfair and insane that we have so much poverty in this country. Solving that issue is number 1. The second problem we have with crime is that our borders are open and Trinidad is a narcotics pipeline. We've sent cocaine to the Philippines, to China, to Spain, to Norfolk, Virginia, to Canada. In the recent past, we had that 600 million bus on Monas. Somebody drank a soft drink from Trinidad in England and died. A hard bus, pure cocaine. We know Trinidad is a narcotics pipeline, but we don't pay attention to it. For some reason, the government is not pressed to answer about it. We had a Scott drug report that was never allowed to direct what we do next. From the Patrick Manning days, if you bring Gary Griffith on the show, he'll tell you there is a plan called the Maritime Security Wall. In fact, Gary is the one who gave it that moniker. The Maritime Security Wall is the repurposing of oil barges 3 miles out at sea around the island, equipping them with facilities for Coast Guard, immigration, police, fast attack boats, interceptor helicopters, connected by the 360-degree radar, sonar buoys, unmanned drones, just like how they do in New York City. In Trinidad, a boat sailed for weeks with nobody on it and sailed up into Tobago. It could have been carrying a nuclear bomb. You could drive up on any beach in Trinidad and there's nobody to stop you and offload whatever you come to offload. The DEA said in a Washington Post article, more marine craft passed between the South American mainland and Trinidad and Tobago at night than were involved in the Normandy invasion. Now, he was saying that to make a joke, but he also wanted to let them know it's big and it needs to be dealt with. If you secure this nation's borders, if you move the Port of Spain that's only causing traffic in Port of Spain, because 90% of the things that coming off the port, coming off those ships, leave Port of Spain. Put the Port of Spain in Point Lisas, a facility 10 times the size, and unstuff every container on the port until we are no longer a narco state. If you secure the borders and unstuff the containers, you will dry up the funding, the dirty dollars that corrupts our governments and our state institutions and drives a lot of the crime that takes place in Trinidad and Tobago. National unity, when David Rerun said how we vote is not how we party, that was an insult and he knew it. But at least it says that how we party, we are one people. So if voting is what divides us, then let's fix that. Let's become one people under one flag. Let's inform, educate, and empower the people to the point where they're voting on issues and not race, and I think we will solve that problem.
Yeah. Philip, I know you're aware of the situation with Mr. Watson Duke, where he was charged under the Sedition Act. I mean, if you get into office with this outdated, draconian...
Ridiculous, stupid...
Would it still be on the law?
Monarchy upholding law. If... And I heard the Prime Minister's response when we all called that it be repealed. Don't amend it.
Yes.
Repeal it completely. That law was created to uphold monarchs and to silence the peasants. We're not peasants. We are stakeholders in our country. That is a ridiculous law. And the fact that this government went and dusted off that, how far down in the cobwebs they had to go to find that law. But we need legislative redevelopment in this country. A lot of our laws are badly drafted, badly written, outdated. If people knew that the police are supposed to go to the airport and stop everybody who's trying to get on a plane and ask them, do you own a car? And if they say yes, did you write the transport commissioner to let him know where your car is and who's in charge of it? Because that's the law. And you could charge everybody by law who didn't. Every vehicle on the road, the ambulance, the police car, the fire engine, all of them have to stop for the TT Post van. Because the Postal Services van, by law, has more right-of-way than any other vehicle on the road. When the Prime Minister said, if we abolish that law, we might as well abolish all the old laws. Yes. A lot of our laws make no sense. There is the charge for what we call obscene language. That's not the charge. The charge is annoying language, which is a ridiculous charge. Because who determines? I have asked. Make a list. Tell us all the words that we cannot say. Because you can't let a policeman or woman charge somebody subjectively and then take it before a magistrate and have that magistrate try to decipher if it is or is not. Look at Fitzgerald Hines. Fitzgerald Hines said yesterday, when he was telling his PNM supporters to go and find UNC people and drive a stake in their heart, he was speaking metaphorically. So who determines? We need our laws to be written in such a way that the police, the offender, the magistrate, the judge, everybody is clear. We need to undo and redo our justice system from the top down. We need judges accountable to the people. We have this silly contempt of court law. You can't even discuss what happens in a matter. It's insane. If a judge is not functional in Trinidad and Tobago, you can't say, you can't discuss it. We have nobody else. The only recourse you have is an appeal. And then you're going to other judges and you don't know if you're going to be treated fairly still. We need judges to know that they are accountable to the taxpayers who pay their salaries. We need to bring all of that back. Our entire country is broken. Nothing works and we need to fix it. You need a strong legislative team. Now, I had Devan Maraj on a show with me yesterday, day before, and he said that that's not going to be an easy task. But if people in the Commonwealth have been repealing and abolishing things like sedition, that means there's already trends set. You could identify between the indictable offenses and the summary offenses, the things that no longer make sense. Kicking a tree is a crime in Trinidad and Tobago. You can't bathe in the Maraval River. I mean, there are ridiculous laws that you need to go and you need to say, does this serve us anymore? The sedition law doesn't.
Philip, what is your thoughts, your take on the whole play down with Mr. Watson Duke? Some say it was politically motivated. The commissioner said it was not.
Well, Trinidad know I have a personal relationship as a friend with the Commissioner of Police. I had a professional relationship with him as a communication advisor. But Gary and I, when we disagree publicly. We've disagreed publicly on all manner of things. And that's the type of friendship we have. I want to trust the Commissioner with what he says. But I want to tell you this. That action cost the DPP's office and the Commissioner of Police office a lot of goodwill. because Trinidadians are now watching the state in a bad light. Because it's looking like the state ganged up.
Yeah.
Now, the Prime Minister could say, well, that's the law on the book. And the DPP could say, well, I have to interpret the law on the book. And the Commissioner could say, well, I have to enforce what the DPP say. But none of them are talking about the fact that a lot of other more glaring examples of sedition. You could go on Dimanche Grand night and charge half the Calypsonians with sedition. And that is true. Cockroach should have been charged every year. And that's the truth.
A lot of them.
So how do you determine, and this is the problem Trinidadians have with it, because whether or not you like Watson Duke or not is not the point. There is a saying, I may not agree with what you're saying, but I will fight to the death for your right to say it. That's what freedom of speech means. And all other human rights and freedoms fall if freedom of speech falls. And if the state is going to use the defamation statute and sedition to silence people who are calling them out on their corruption, who are calling them out on their failings, then we're in a bad place as a nation. And we need to fire this government quickly and put a government in place that will right-size all of these unforgivable wrongs.
On that note, Philip, we know that you're very outspoken. So my next question to you is, have you ever been given a charge under the Sedition Act? Because you've been out there.
Unfortunately not, but I have had more pre-action protocol letters, I think, than anybody now in history. And I find it ridiculous, because I was most politically active under the last government. And those people, I mean, Jack Warner, Fuad Khan, Anand Ramlogan, Timothy Hammersmith, you name, and Anil Roberts, we had it out, we duked it out, they would respond. Nobody, not one letter, not one. And this government comes to office, and it is defamation after defamation and pre-action protocol. This fella, Michael Kwamina. Now, I was told before by a PNM financier that they have a thoroughbred lawyer that they're going to use to silence people from doing the same things. I said the other day, if the PNM under Keith Rowley, when it was in opposition, faced the same barrage of lawsuits for defamation or charges for sedition as people face now under him, he and a lot of his party would be in jail. Keith Rowley has committed the most egregious act of sedition this country has ever seen, when he used the parliamentary privilege to try and incite the nation to violence over the fake email gate. And he knew it was fraudulent. And I'll tell you why I know he knew. Because you don't get a document. Forget everything else it said. Forget everything else that Emailgate said. You don't get a document that says the Prime Minister, the Attorney General, one of her ministers, Suraj Rambachan, and her security advisor, Gary Griffith, are plotting to kill a journalist. Denise Rennick named it. He named her.
Let us say alleged in case,
No, this is what Emailgate says.
Okay.
It's in the Hansard now. I'll quote the Hansard. You cannot say, you cannot accept that he had a document that suggested, alleged, accused the then Prime Minister and all of these people of plotting to murder a journalist, and he do nothing. He didn't call her. He didn't call the police. He didn't call the DPP. All he did was give it to Max Richards for 6 months, and Denise ran life in danger as madness. And a child could have seen that. So when Keith Rowley, and one side said he found it in a mailbox, the other side, Faris Al-Rawi, said it was placed in his hands by a whistleblower who he trusts. Which is it? Somebody told me it was an illegal SIA sweep of the government. Information handed to the opposition, doctored to look. That's treason. That's hang by the neck until dead. That's that. We still don't know. And I said to Gary Griffith, friend of mine, colleague of mine, I said to him, when you closed Emailgate, you were supposed to open Treason Gate. Parliamentary privilege does not protect you from murder. You cannot go into the parliament, shoot somebody under parliamentary privilege. You cannot go into the parliament and commit seditious acts. You cannot commit treason under parliamentary privilege. And until Keith Rowley is charged for sedition, the entire sedition law is a joke, it is a farce, it is being used as a political big stick, and we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, have to reject it out of hand.
Philip, on that note, NATUC General Secretary Mr. Michael Annie said he had noted that this Sedition Act, it seemed to muzzle Mr. Watson Duke, but not just him, but also
Everybody.
trade unionists.
Everybody, every activist, no matter who you are, if you know who it muzzles. We make jokes about these people when they go to arrest people on the side of the road and talking all the too wicked. That's sedition.
Yeah.
That's sedition. Every single act where you stand against the state is sedition. The law is so ridiculous. It is so draconian. It is the monarchy putting their boot in your neck. And every single citizen of this country, every priest, there are priests on the altar, their eulogy could be seditious. There are imams, there are pundits, every single Trinbagonian, because you see, you might say, well, I'm not a priest, I'm not a pundit, I'm not an imam, I'm not an activist, I'm not a union leader, I'm not a politician.
Yeah.
So this don't apply to me. But one day, something may happen in your world that causes you to want to speak out, and then you realize, I can't. Because all the other people that used to speak out before, I've allowed them to lose their voice, and now I have none. Yeah. So they could do me what they want. This should not muzzle Watson Duke. And I am saying to him, stand strong. This is a fight. He is now the tip of the spear. But we have the other side of the coin, where that Fitzgerald Hines drive the stake in the UNC heart until they're dead. We have that. We have other acts like Keith Rowley and Emailgate. All of those, if you cannot apply it on a level play field across the board, don't use it at all. Because then it looks like the DPP and the Commissioner of Police, it comes across like they've been pressed into political service, and that is madness.
I mean, a lot of persons also question the fact that Mr. Duke is getting a lot of traction over in Tobago. This was the government's idea to muzzle Mr. Duke. What is your thought on that?
In politics, because I talk to everybody in politics, I mean, everybody have a political opinion, and there is almost a foregone conclusion that Duke taken Tobago.
Right.
So, if that have anything to do with this, then you need to charge a lot of people with misbehavior in public office. Because you cannot, the Constitution guarantees you your right to freedom of association, your freedom of expression, your freedom of political association. Political association and expression. If this is that, then this is at the very least misbehavior in public office by a lot of senior public officers. And again, and I said to you earlier, we are at a very touchy place in our development as a nation. We could either use this to spring forward into a real democratic nation, or we could allow it to move us to the dark ages of dictatorship. We, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, we need to decide what happens next.
We're just going to toss a short break. Actually, we're going to go to news, and we're going to come back, and I'm just going to read out some of the questions here so Mr. Philip can answer to all our viewers and listeners this morning. So stay tuned. And welcome back, TNT, to PSA TV. We have came into the Iron Labor segment now with Mr. Phillip Alexander. We've been chatting a lot this morning, so we're just going to probably pull some of the comments here so you could, respond to persons as well. One person is asking me, I just saw it there, about how are you going to curb the rogue elements in the police service?
We spoke, before Gary was made commissioner, we spoke about introducing an internal affairs division in the police service and using foreign expertise. In fact, we were talking about working with the New York City Police Department, New York City went from the murder capital of the world to being the #1 tourism destination on the planet. And you don't do that without cleaning up your rogue police service. And they had 65,000 police to deal with. So we have friends in the New York City Police Department who give us a lot of guidance and in the internal affairs. And one of them was saying, because on one of my live videos, I spoke about the internal affairs, and they said that Somebody had said on the live video that nobody ain't giving up nobody, so they will fail. And he chuckled and he said, we don't need nobody to give up nobody. What you see on TV, that's not how it works. He said, we follow the money. All we need is the suspicion, and that cleans it up. And from the moment the police service, and I think you need to give some amnesty and some immunity, because if you just go in there and say every crime that was committed, we charging all you or we firing you, you'll end up with a lot of police gone. Mm-hmm. So it has to be a process, and there has to be a way to move Trinidad from this lawlessness to lawful, law-abiding. Mm-hmm. We can't lose people. I mean, unless you committed murder and treason and other capital or blood crimes, there's going to have to be some leeway. We have a situation, look at, they say they're going to decriminalize marijuana. They said they were going to decriminalize marijuana by June. We're in September. The Progressive Empowerment Party launched by saying we want to decriminalize marijuana and grow it for the pharmaceutical industry globally and export it. California, by itself, outside of the USA, is the 13th largest economy in the world, and medicinal marijuana made a difference to them. We have so many people in Trinidad on charges for marijuana possession. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's ridiculous. And we have so many people who have convictions against them for marijuana use. And I said to the state, if you were serious about decriminalizing marijuana, then telegraph it to law enforcement. Stop charging people and telegraph it to the justice system. We are no longer charging. Instruct them, drop the charges. Let the DPP, if you give the DPP instructions, we're going to decriminalize it. They could start to purge from people's records that they had a conviction, because a marijuana conviction is ridiculous. Yeah. You know, and it affects people in so many ways. You can't get bank loans, you can't own a home, you can't travel. It's just a ridiculous and stupid thing. A lot of times people end up with a conviction in their youth, you know, and I just find that we need to again put the human element back into everything we do and put ourselves. That was one of the things that always got to me. And I found that politicians across the board don't seem to know how to put themselves in other people's shoes. Mm-hmm. We're too absolute. Mm-hmm. We're too cut and dried. A person living in West Moorings has a different life experience and worldview to a person living in Sealots. And you have to take that into account. Mm-hmm. You can't just make one-size-fits-all sweeping judgments. You have to take into account how people seeing the world, what their experience is. Because what we want to do is correct, right size, and go forward, leaving nobody behind.
Yeah. Philip, I want to put politics and friends aside and ask you a direct question. You know, how would you rate the Commissioner Gary Griffith's performance since he's been in office?
How would I rate it? Mm-hmm. Knowing what he has to work with, yeah. Because I want to bring this into the conversation too, right? We've had prime ministers refer to the police service as rogue. Mm-hmm. The current head of the Police Complaints Authority, David West, referred to the police service in Trinidad and Tobago as the largest gang in TNT. You got to put that in that perspective. As commissioner, I wonder all the time how he not losing his mind. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous that he's had such a grasp of knowing where to go, mm-hmm. and we've seen him make roads into drug trafficking in Regent's Park. Stuart Young's stepdaughter, mm-hmm. Marlene McDonald was arrested and charged, Annan Ramlogan. So we see that he is trying what he inherited. The Anti-Corruption Investigative Bureau madly was under the Attorney General instead of the police service, mm-hmm. despite there being a separation of powers. It's put back under the police service. I expect that given time, if he holds the course that I know he can, Gary will paint a masterpiece. I do not doubt for a minute politics could interfere, and humans are humans. But I always want to start off giving people the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
When Keith Rowley was elected Prime Minister, I contacted Maxie Coffey, who was my editor at the Mirror. I was a columnist at the Mirror. I was the only columnist that wrote on the weekday and weekend editions. Maxie and I spoke regularly, and we established a relationship. I called Maxie and I said, listen, under Gary Griffith as Minister of National Security, we created a communication system that gets information to the public quickly and could end panic and that kind of stuff, and I'd like to give it to you. Maxie said, we can't do no business with you. I said, it's not really business, but what you mean? He said, you ran against the leader. I said, I ran as an independent. He said, that don't matter. And I thought this was such a ridiculous position, because I called to offer you something that helps the country, but no matter. I even spoke to Rowley after his first televised press conference. I said all the things that needed to be said. But you can't operate a country where we shut down Caroni because it was losing $1 billion a year, and you have CPEP and URP losing $1 billion a year. It looks political, it looks divisive, and that there are ways and means to put those two problems to bear at the same time and come out of its like a rose. And for a minute, he sounded like the Prime Minister we thought he could be. But boy, were we wrong.
I just want to read a comment here from Mohammed. Mistakes should not be life sentence, but one shot, one kill is very, very defining.
It is. One shot, one kill, I know, and I want to tell you this. We met with Bill Bratton. He's probably the most successful police commissioner the world has ever had. And Bill Bratton could write his ticket anywhere. He was the man credited with transforming New York City. And speaking to him, when he came to Trinidad, we had a breakout session, and a small group of people was talking communications. And he said, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years after New York City was crime-free, people still did not feel safe.
Yeah.
And that it is not only important that you make it safe, but that people feel safe. Gary has been telegraphing, because this is what communications does. Communications finds what was missing. When you come on the heels of Philbert and Williams, who held their corner, for want of a better word, wasn't disturbing anybody, Gary come to disturb everybody. And he needed to send a message to those who wanted to telegraph that they will push back. Because in politics, people tell me all the time, some of the things you say, and there are people who don't want you to say that. If you get in the government, they assassinate you, all kind of, right? Gary says he's got credible death threats every day. I've gotten credible death threats myself. He had to send a message that if you push, I will push back. And that's what that was a telegraph of, because it's a sound bite. It's easy to pick it up and say, he said this. And even if you don't like him, or especially if you don't like him, you're telling other people, getting his message out. Not everything I tell you, you will agree with. And if I tell you the Commissioner of Police say, if you shoot at police, they'll kill you, you might say, well, that's not a bad position to take. Because when you think about it, now, yes, we say that there are rogue elements in the police service, but we're not supposed to paint everybody with a broad brush. Because they have rogue elements in the police, it don't mean all police rogue. And police officers leave their wives and their husbands and their families, and they go out every single day and night to put their lives on the line for strangers. And they've gotten the support of a commissioner of police who, when he came in, even police officers were wary and untrusting. And he had to win their trust too. And I know police officers. I mean, I was late coming here because a police officer stopped me to chat. I know police officers, and they tell me that, yeah, tell your boy, he's saying the right things. Right. Because from the police point of view, remember, they put St. Joseph Police Station under siege and shoot it up. A woman driving West End Police Station to get away from killers, they follow her into the station and kill her there. Yep. Besson Street Police Station, they assault it with high-powered rifles. So it's not an easy situation. And I tell Trinidad and Tobago this, there's only Gary Griffith. I don't know how is he doing this every day still. is an incredible, incredible job to have to take on all of the wrong in society and not get jaded, you know, and not think that, boy, it's every politician, it's every police, it's everybody. Because we are such a lawless society, and it's work to pull it back. I know to some people hearing a statement like one shot, one kill is frightening. And I see that under him, they are introducing non-lethal tasers and pepper spray.
Yeah, I think it was introduced yesterday, it was launched yesterday.
So that's the flip side of the coin. If he just wanted to go there and kill people, he would be getting bigger, better guns.
Philip, I just have another question for you before you leave studio this morning. What is your thoughts on keeping the Petrotrin as a state entity?
Petrotrin was important to Trinidad and Tobago, and it could be again.
Yes.
I do not understand how the people of Trinidad and Tobago accepted so wildly contradicting statements from Espinay and Franklin Cann. 3 months before Franklin Cann said that Petrotrin was a drain on the economy that was going to destroy Trinidad, Espinay said, we just turned the corner, we made a profit, we're doing well. 3 months, and the last time we saw that was Clarence Rambarat said Caroni Green is the perfect example of a state agency, and then you shut Caroni Green down. I don't understand the bipolar nature of the government. I don't understand how the people of Trinidad and Tobago accept this nonsense so easily. Keith Rowley didn't put in his manifesto that we were going to shut Petrotrin down. He didn't put that in his manifesto, and he shouldn't have had the authority to do that. How do you think Trinidadians would feel if the government said, we're selling Tobago to China? I'm just using a wild, stupid analogy. They'd revolt.
Of course.
We should have treated Petrotrin politically. That was a time bomb. If it needed repair after the Malcolm Jones experience and the looting of the 13 billion for the sulfur to ultra gas to liquids plant and the sulfur diesel plant, if we needed to right size it, somebody said that under Texaco, there were 26 managers. Petrotrin had hundreds of managers to do the same jobs. And that is where the bloat was, not at the worker level. It's like the Coast Guard. I tell people, you can't blame the average Coast Guard man because the boats park up in Hartscott. It's the leadership of the Coast Guard have to answer. Why are your boats not securing the borders? Petrotrin should have been pressed into service. Functionally, we should have had an inquiry to get to the bottom, press pause, right size, and come to terms with it. But how they handle it, I thought it was madness. I still feel that their ultimate plan is to privatize it. They've sold off assets that we will only know when we get into office. I mean, they have things like the Augustus Long Hospital. I didn't know what's going on with that. A lot of the real estate. Petrotrin has a lot of land, and we don't know what's going on with it. Caroni land. Caroni land has been given out like sweeties and jub-jubs to friends and finances of both parties. 100 acres. I know one man who got 100 acres from both parties.
Yeah, Vox supporters saying good response there. Well, Philip, I know it's been a lengthy interview with you this morning. I mean, I want to thank you so much for
I should have taken my vitamins if I knew it was going to be this long. But it was a nice interview.
Yeah, I know. This platform is always open to not just for Labour, for any discussion
I hope
topics.
you bring every political leader and ask them similar questions.
Of course.
So that even if we don't get a debate, the public, you would be able to say, this were all these people's positions on all of these key. That is important in the upcoming elections, and I think that we get into a place where Trinidadians are going to want to vote on information, and you're in a good place to make that.
So I want to thank all the Pepper fans and also the PSA members who's been tuned in here this morning, viewing this interview with us, and we'll just ask you for your closing comment.
Thank you very much. I didn't know there was a PSA media. I'm very impressed with what you all done there. You and all your guys behind the scenes.
Yes.
They do an amazing job. The head of Pep Media, Satish Ramsaran, you need to come and talk to these guys. Closing comments. Trinidad and Tobago, we are in a place now where we could either roll over and let these things defeat us, or we could use it as an opportunity to springboard into being the country that we were meant to be. Trinidad and Tobago could be one of the best nations on the planet, one of the richest nations on the planet, paradise on earth convincingly, again, as David Rhoda said. And we could do that in our lifetime. I pray that the average person puts country first and come together to make that a reality.
So, very nice, Philip. So I want to thank the leader of the Progressive Empowerment Party, the next aspiring Prime Minister for this country. So we look forward to seeing good things with you, Philip, and thanks so much for joining us here at PSA TV. We're going to take a short break and come right back to the program.